Welcome back to another class on Dalat Amot shel Halacha. En lo Kadosh Baruch Hu be'olamo ela arba'a Amot shel Halacha bilvad.
לא ארדוף אחרי דבר כי אם אחריך, אחפש בכל אדם חלקיך, מביבה בהם. אם לא אתה שבתוך הסתרה, לא אדאג עוד לדבר סוד עבודתך, להשליך את הצרה זו עליך ויתעלם. הוא יאהבך, הוא יכלכלך.
מה אשיב לך, מה ששלי הרי שלך, ומי יזכיר לי אם לא אתה, לא מגיע לי כלום.
ומה אשיב לך, שלי הכל ממך, ומי יזכיר לי אם לא אתה, לחייך ולקום.
B'Shem Hashem naseh v'natzliach. We are beginning a new Siman in Siman Reish Ayin Aleph. That's 271. Dinei Kiddush al Yain, the laws of Kiddush on wine. Ubo Yud Zayin Seifim. And in this chapter we're going to have 17 halachot. While we were doing Siman Reish Tzadik Tet, in the laws of Havdalah, a lot of times it said look into Siman Reish Ayin Aleph. So now we're going to start Siman Reish Ayin Aleph in order to be able to parallel it with the halachot of Havdalah if we have to. So today, Be'ezrat Hashem, what I would like to start doing is, once we're going to do the halacha and the sivkatans in the Mishnah Berurah, and we have completed all the sivkatans in the Mishnah Berurah, the Sha'ar Tzion and the Amudei Hora'ah, once we complete that, I would like to start doing the chazara right away of halacha berur from Rav David Yosef Shlita. Why is this important? I realized that in Siman Reish Tzadik Tet, when we were doing Siman Reish Tzadik Tet, when we did, we were doing a lot. We did the Mishnah Berurah, the Biur Halacha, the Sha'ar Tzion, the Amudei Hora'ah. Once we finished the whole Siman, then we started doing the whole chazara. And the honest truth is, while I was doing the whole chazara, there were halachot that I knew off the back, but there were other halachot that Rav David Yosef was bringing down where I was like, I don't remember it. So I would have to relearn the halacha again inside the Shulchan Aruch with the Mishnah Berurah to get a better understanding. To be able to understand what Rav David Yosef is saying, because then only was I able to record and explain it. So in order not to have to go through that, I want to try to something new. We'll do the halacha with the Mishnah Berurah and the Sha'ar Tzion and the Amudei Hora'ah, whatever Be'ezrat Hashem we're going to do. Once we finish the halacha, let's say for halacha aleph, then we'll do the chazara for halacha aleph in the sefer of Rav David Yosef Shlita. And then we're going to move on to halacha bet. So this way we have the chazara immediately on halacha aleph. So whatever he's going to bring down, we'll be able to see it either in the Mishnah Berurah or in the Amudei Hora'ah or in the Sha'ar Tzion. And whatever he's not going to, or whatever he's going to bring down, it's not in the Mishnah Berurah. So we'll see something outside. But like this, at least we'll know what the focus is on, and not to do the other way where I finish the whole chapter after I finish all the 7 halachot, and then go back and try to do like that. I think it's going to be much harder just to understand the halachot and memorize them and remember them and be able to do them. Okay, so let's try this. We are right now in Siman Reish Ayin Aleph in halacha aleph. The Shulchan Aruch begins. Kishiyavol lebeito. When a person comes home from the synagogue, yimaher lechol miyad. He has to be quick to eat immediately. If you read the Shulchan Aruch, something does not make sense. The Shulchan Aruch says, Kishiyavol lebeito yimaher lechol miyad. When you're going to come home, be quick to eat immediately. How can you eat before doing Kiddush? How do you start a meal before you do Kiddush? Friday night, once Shabbat comes in, you're not allowed to eat anything until you do Kiddush. So how can the Shulchan Aruch tell me over here, once you come home, eat immediately? How can I eat immediately if I still didn't do Kiddush? So that, Rabotai, the Mishnah Berurah tells us in Sivkat and Aleph, and he explains the halacha, what is the Shulchan Aruch really saying? So in Sivkat Aleph it says, Yimaher lechol v'chulu. When the Shulchan Aruch said you should be quick to eat immediately, Hainu lekadesh. The Mishnah Berurah tells you which means to say to do Kiddush. That means to say like this. So you're not going to read the Halacha in the Shulchan Aruch. Kishiyavo lebeito yimaher lechol miyad. You're not going to read it like that. But what you're going to read is like Kishiyavo lebeito yimaher lechol miyad dahainu lekadesh. That you should, when you come home, you should be quick to eat immediately, which means to say to do Kiddush, but not to actually eat unless you first did Kiddush. Now, what is the reason we want you to do Kiddush immediately once you come home? In order for you to remember the Shabbat in the beginning time of the Shabbat entering. Once Shabbat enters, we want you to remember it. The earlier we do the Kiddush, the better it is. Now, how do you remember Shabbat, Rabotai? You remember Shabbat through Kiddush. By doing the Kiddush, that's how you remember Shabbat. So that was the Shulchan Aruch telling us. When you're coming home, you should be quick in doing the Kiddush. Why do we want you to do the Kiddush? Why do we want you to do the Kiddush right away? That's in order for you to be able to remember the Shabbat immediately once Shabbat comes in. And how are you going to do that? Through Kiddush. But the Mishnah Berurah says something very important over here. The earlier we do it, the better it is. Now I'll put it to you like this. You can have two people, Reuven and Shimon. They both come home, let's say they both come home 8 o'clock. One walks into the house, takes his time, starts going changing, puts on his sweats or pajamas, whatever it might be. The other one starts Shalom Aleichem and immediately starts doing Kiddush. He is much better off in the eyes of Hashem than the other guy that went and started changing or taking his time and whatever he's doing in the house. Once you come home, we don't want you doing other things. We don't want you doing anything else. Once you come home, we want the table to be already set. Okay, we'll see. If the table's not set, that's something else. You shouldn't make a problem because of that. But once you come home, immediately you want to start saying Shalom Aleichem, right? You say Shabbat Shalom to the family, you say Shalom Aleichem, and immediately you begin the Kiddush in order for you to be able to remember the Shabbat at its entrance. Because the earlier you do the Kiddush, the better it is. Again, both of them are going to fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush. It's just there's the best way of doing Kiddush. You can either do it 30 minutes after you came home, or you can either do it immediately, and we want you to try to do the Kiddush as earlier as possible. Continues the Mishnah Berurah Sivkat and Aleph. Umikiven shikidesh. Here we go about a very important halacha. And since you went ahead and you do the Kiddush, tzarich lechol miyad. You need to eat immediately. Rabotai, I want to repeat this again. Umikevan shikidesh. And since you went ahead and you did the Kiddush, you need to eat immediately now. So when the Shulchan Aruch says, Kishiyavo lebeito yimaher lechol miyad, the Mishnah Berurah tells us, Hainu likadesh, meaning you should go ahead and do Kiddush immediately in order for you to be able to eat immediately. Now, Rabotai, you know how important this halacha is? A lot of times you have people, they wait for their in-laws or their parents or their brothers or neighbors or friends to come home. So it's one thing if you're waiting for them. Fine, if you have to wait for guests, you have to wait for guests. But it's another thing when your wife and your children tell you, Abba, we're hungry, or we want to drink something, and they can't drink anything until you do Kiddush. So you're going to say, okay, you know something, I'll do Kiddush for you. So you go ahead and you do Kiddush for them. Now they're able to go ahead and drink, and now you're waiting another hour for your neighbor or your friend or your brother or whoever is coming to your house as a guest. That, Rabotai, is a very big problem. That you're not allowed to do. Since you did Kiddush, we want you to immediately go ahead and wash your hands for the bread meal. You're not allowed to have the Kiddush, say, at 8:05, and then do the Su'ud at 9 o'clock. That you cannot do it. We want the Kiddush and the meal to be close to each other as much as possible. So that's what he's telling us over here. Umikevan shekiddush, and since you did the Kiddush, tzarich lechol miyad, you need to eat immediately. Ki mevuar b'siman reish and gimel siv gimel behaga. Like this halach is brought down in Siman reish and gimel, that's in 273. In halacha gimel in the Ramah. So that is point number one we're seeing right now. That whenever the Shulchan Aruch says, Kishiyavo lebeito yibaher lechol miyad, when you come home, you should be quick in eating immediately. It doesn't mean to say you should eat immediately, but rather what does it mean to say? You should do Kiddush immediately. Why do you do Kiddush immediately? Because you want to remember the Shabbat right when it begins. And once you went there and you did the Kiddush, now you have a mitzvah to begin the meal immediately. Now we're going to move on to point number 2. We are still in Sivkat and Aleph in the Mishnah Berurah, 3 lines down in Sivkat and Aleph. V'im enu ta'ev lechol. Very big problem, Rabotai, with this halacha right now. I'll just give a small introduction for us to understand. Believe that we're not doing it right now, but there is a halacha that a person has to come into Shabbat hungry, not starving, not in pain. But yeah, you could eat in the morning. You're allowed to have snacks. You're allowed to have fruit. You're allowed to eat on Erev Shabbat. But sometimes you have people that they satiate themselves. They have full meals. That, Rabotai, is a problem. If right now you went ahead and you had a good meal, or you went and you had a pizza or shawarma 2 hours before Shabbat, 3 hours before Shabbat, or even at 1 o'clock, these things are a problem because now when Shabbat comes in, you don't have a desire to eat. It's like I put it to you like this, on Erev Pesach, why aren't we allowed to eat matzot? Because you have to have a desire to want to eat matzot. Same thing over here, you shouldn't satiate, you shouldn't fill up your stomach with other foods. Again, you can snack, you can eat, no problem. But you shouldn't eat a meal, basically, where you're going to be satiated. Why? What's going to be the problem? Because once I'm satiated, I no longer want to, I'm not looking forward for my Shabbat meal. And that is the problem. So that's why he tells us over here. V'im enu ta'ev lechol. Let's say you have this person that he does not have a desire to eat right now because for whatever reason he didn't know the halacha, or better yet, let's say he knew the halacha, but there was a sudat mitzvah. Sudat mitzvah, he had a brit milah, bar mitzvah. All right, you're allowed to eat, no problem. So he went ahead and he ate, and now he's full. He really does not want to eat. There's a mitzvah to eat the Shabbat meal when you're hungry. There's a desire, you want to look forward for it. Like a chatan and kala, when they get married, they're looking forward to get married every single day, every single minute. They're counting down. Same thing by Shabbat. You know, the crazy part about Shabbat is, once Shabbat comes out, we're happy in a way. I'm not going to say we're happy, but people are excited. They could do things. But already after Sunday, already Monday, you start feeling that, wow, Shabbat is gone. Like you can't wait until Shabbat comes. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Friday night, once Shabbat comes, now you want to postpone it more. Why would you want to postpone it? Why would you want to postpone it when you could go ahead and start enjoying Shabbat immediately? So comes the Mishnah Berurah and he tells us, V'im enu ta'ev lechol. If a person does not have the desire to eat, yachol lamtim milikadesh ad shira'av. He's able to wait from doing Kiddush until he becomes hungry. Because like I explained, there is a mitzvah to eat the meal when you have a desire, when you have a want. Basically when you're hungry, not when you're full and just forcing yourself to eat. That he says, V'im enu ta'ev lechol. But if a person does not have that desire to eat, yachol amtim lekadesh ad shira'av. He's able to wait from doing Kiddush until he becomes hungry. Shekvar zachar, why? Shekvar zachar et Shabbat b'tifilato b'beit HaKnesset. Because you already remembered the Shabbat in your Shemona Esrei in the Beit HaKnesset. V'yotze bezeh ha-mitzvat aseh dorat el Rambam. And you fulfill your obligation of remembering Shabbat, of the positive commandment from the Torah, according to the Rambam, in the Shemona Esrei. I have a sitter over here. Just give me 1 second. Let me get a sitter. Let me just see the prayer for Aravi Shel Shabbat. I want to see where this is. What are we speaking about over here? Here. Right, after you say Baruch Ata Hashem Hakel HaKadosh, you begin with the bracha Ata Kiddush et Yom HaShvi'i L'Shemecha. Right over here. Ata Kiddush, right over here. Right, then you continue and you conclude right over here. Baruch Ata Hashem Mikadesh HaShabbat. Right? So, what is the Mishnah Berurah telling us over here like this? It says, listen, even though there is a mitzvah for you to go ahead and to remember Shabbat immediately once Shabbat comes in, meaning once you come home from the synagogue, good. That's what we want you to do. But right now this person, he's full. He doesn't have a drive to eat. He doesn't have a desire to eat. No problem. Let him go ahead. Let him wait from doing Kiddush until he becomes hungry. Why is he able to do that? What about mentioning Shabbat at its entrance? No problem. שכבר זכר את השבת בתפילתו בבית הכנסת. You already mentioned the Shabbat in your prayer of the Shemona Esrei in the synagogue. ויוצא בזה המצוות עשה דאורייתא לרמב"ם. You fulfill with this the positive commandment from the Torah according to the Rambam. So you already did it there. He says, like later on, we'll see it from the name of the Magen Avraham in the name of the Rama'ah. This is not the Rama'ah. It's not Rav Moshe Israel. It's Ramah Mipano. I think it's two different Ramah. It's not the same one, the Haggah. It's not that same Ramah. Nevertheless, he says, it seems, what happens if you have because of the Shalom Bayit? Now, you're not satiated. Now, let's go the other way around. Now, you're satiated, but your family is not. Your wife is hungry, your children are hungry. Or you have maids in the house. Or you have other guests in the house. Especially if you have somebody who's poor in your house and he's waiting on you to feed him. In all situations, whether you are satiated, whether you're not, it doesn't matter. In all situations, we're going to tell you, do not push off the Kiddush. If your wife tells you, listen, babe, we need to start the Kiddush early because I need the kids to go to sleep on time. Otherwise, each kid starts acting up, or either one's going to get hard on the maid servants, they're going to go home late, or you have a guest that needs to walk along, or you have a poor guest. Any one of these situations, anything that causes any discomfort in the house, we're going to tell you, you're not allowed to postpone the Kiddush just because you're still not hungry. No, we don't care. You're satiated, that's your problem. Go ahead, do the Kiddush, wash your hands, sit on the table, and look at them eat. But you cannot say, oh, I'm still full. You guys have to wait for me because I want to do the mitzvah the best possible way. That you cannot do. So he says over here, Lo yacher b'chol gavna. In all cases, you should not postpone the Kiddush, meaning to say, whether you're satiated, whether you're not satiated, don't postpone it since you have shalom bayit issues, or you have maids in the house, or you have other guests, or you have a poor person, a poor guest in your house. In all situations, you do not postpone the Kiddush, but rather you should go ahead and begin the Kiddush immediately. Why is that so? The kivan dehem mutalim alav, since they are placed on you, your wife, the maid servants, the guests, or the poor guest, lo yuchal akvam b'shvil shehu rotzeh lekayem mitzvah min hamuvchar. You're not able to prevent them from having their meal just because you want to go ahead and you want to fulfill the mitzvah from the best possible way. And that's what I tried to explain to you before. The best possible way to do the mitzvah of starting to eat the Suda Shabbat is when you're hungry, when you have a desire to want to eat the Shabbat meal. Not when you're satiated. Nevertheless, he says, when it comes to other people, we're not going to allow you to go ahead and push away the Kiddush because you want to do the mitzvah, mina mufcha, you want to do the mitzvah the best possible way. That we're not going to allow you. So we see over here 3 points in the Mishnah Berurah Sivchat and Aleph. Point number 1, whenever the Shulchan Aruch says, when you come home from the synagogue, be quick to eat immediately, it means to go ahead and do the Kiddush immediately. We want you to do Kiddush immediately. That's number 1. Why do we want you to do Kiddush immediately? That's in order for you to remember the Shabbat at the beginning time once it enters. The earlier you do it, the better it is. And once you went ahead and you do the Kiddush, you have an obligation to eat immediately. That's point number 1. Point number 2, if you don't have the desire to eat right now, you are able to postpone the Kiddush until you become hungry. Why? Because you already remember the Shabbat in your Shemona Esrei prayer in the Beit HaKnesset, and with this you're going to be able to fulfill the positive commandment from the Torah of remembering Shabbat according to the Rambam. That is point number 2. Point number 3, we saw nevertheless, the Mishnah Berurah says, it seems, wherever you have shalom bayit, or wherever you have maid servants in your house, or other guests, or even a poor guest in your house, do not postpone the Kiddush in all situations. Since they are placed on you, since they are waiting for you to do the Kiddush and be able to eat, we're going to tell you, do not hold them back from having their meal, just because you want to do the mitzvah the best possible way. Rabotai, we're going to conclude over here, Be'ezrat Hashem B'leneder, in the following class. We will begin with Siv Katan Bet. Have a great day. Baruch Adonai La'olam. Amen ve'amen.